The story that is here is the story of the prehistory, that is prior to the coming of Europeans to North America, prior to 1538, when there was no writing, no written language. That would be the prehistory of the southwestern states, or the southwest corner of the United States of America. The story of the prehistory of the Southwest, as I was explaining to 2 or 3 people this morning, is literally unknown. It's not in any book, in any language in the world, with one possible exception. Every day there are new discoveries being made, pushing back scientific dates farther and farther back into prehistory, and textbooks are even 1 or 2 generations in the future going to have to be changed again. Where did these people come from? Why did they build these places? Never before 300 AD, never after 1300 AD. And after 1300 AD, all abandoned, never used again.
There are countless archaeological sites throughout the world, from the Bering Straits of North America to the pyramids of the Middle East, from the plains of Africa to the discovery of Stonehenge. Every corner of the world seems to leave traces of its ancient past to be uncovered. Every day throughout the world, new sites are being found, and with them are new clues as to where we may have originated from. Yet throughout the world, with every unearthing of pottery or mysterious stone formation, comes a people's story or myth of who they are, where they came from, and their predictions to what is to become of humanity's future. The American Southwest is no exception. It too is riddled with unanswered questions as to the origin and genesis of its ancestors. There are presently over 300 federally recognized Native American tribes spread throughout North America, with approximately 50 in the American Southwest alone. The earliest documented occupation of the American Southwest dates to before 9000 BC, although the oral traditions of the indigenous people date back much farther. Adding to the mystery of the American Southwest is the fact that many of their communities were abruptly abandoned after 1300 AD. Their disappearance is just as mysterious as their origins. The tribes of the American Southwest, like every other culture throughout the world, also have their myths and stories of creation. We will be focusing on the myths and traditions of the Hopi tribes through the eyes of avocational archaeologist Charles Rand. Charles began exploring the myths and traditions of the American Southwest over 20 years ago. His studies led Charles to work on several sites throughout the Southwest, including sites in Winslow, Arizona, Q Ranch in Young, Arizona, Elder Pueblo in Flagstaff, and the Raven site at St. John's.
Like others of my age, senior citizen beyond 65 by a number of years, the old questions about who made me and why am I here and what am I supposed to be doing on this earth and where am I going to go to when I leave here continue to be more and more significant. And learning about the oral traditions of the prehistoric people here in the Southwest has given me great insight into answers that I would never have been able to acquire in any other way.
Charles would come to befriend a Hopi family, sharing their lives and their rituals for over 20 years of his life. It was during this time he discovered that the oral traditions of the indigenous ancestors were, at times, at odds with the traditional academic assumptions.
And fortunately here at the Little Bear Archaeological Site, following my 20-year experience in living off and on with one of the Hopi families, I've been able to gather authentic information which I'm more than delighted to share with people who are spiritually interested in visiting and learning more about the prehistoric sites of the Southwest.
It was during the late 90s, a large privately owned piece of property in northwest Arizona would unearth one of the many sacred sites created by the Hopis of the Southwest. The place would be X Diamond Ranch, run and owned by Wink Krigler. The property was in Wink's family for several generations. Charles would befriend Wink, eventually retire, and take on the full-time task of running what they called the Little Bear Archaeological Site. Charles and Wink would both agree to keep away from the influence of educational, governmental, or institutional grants and decided to allow the public to excavate the site, with Charles authenticating all the findings and storing all the artifacts in the museum. In the museum, contained in the artifacts, would be the name of the individual who found them. Charles' background and knowledge of the oral traditions made it a great experience for the participants in the field school. This film brings you on an intimate journey of the oral Hopi traditions and their ancient message to all of mankind.
We're here in the American Southwest in the state of Arizona, over on the east side near the New Mexico border in the center of the state. The closest couple of towns are Springerville and Eager. We're here on the X Diamond Ranch, and the habitation site here has been given the name of the Little Bear Archaeological Site because of the several stone animal objects that have been found here, religious items actually, in the shape of little bears. And so it's important to ask yourself, as in any given situation, what is the source of the information being given to you today? I'm an avocational archaeologist, and I've had the opportunity to work at 4 or 5 sites here in the American Southwest over the last 15 or 20 years. And so when you ask the question about the source, ultimately you've got to get to the descendant peoples of those prehistoric peoples and cultures that actually built these sites. The myths and the legends and the oral tradition of these peoples are the authority for the information that we offer you today. What you see here at this particular location falls into a very early time period in the total spectrum of construction in the Southwest. The earliest ruins here in this part of the country have been identified as being built somewhere between 300 and 500 AD, and that would incorporate a large portion of this site. This is a very early site, and from what I've been able to determine here, probably was not occupied before 400 or 500 AD, and that probably went on for 300 or 400 years, certainly no later than 800, 850 probably. That's primarily based upon the masonry styles that are here, because there's nothing here that approaches the classic period, which is normally dated 800 to 1100 or 1200, which applies to the ruins that are in the Four Corners area, several hundred miles north and east of here, where the states of Colorado, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico come together. Tremendous structure that you see here in April of '02 when I came here was nothing more than a horse and cattle pasture with a slight bowl shape to it, which from my experience at visiting other sites led me to believe that there was a structure underground here that might well be large and significant. Around me, the structure is about 40 feet by 40 feet, surrounded by an exterior wall that went up 6 to 8 feet, which when I arrived in '02 had collapsed and fallen in to the center about 10 or 12 feet in on all four sides. And of course that had to initially be removed from the site in order to expose the land surface beneath, where we could actually start excavating and beginning to show the interior bench that's here. During the last 7 years, along with the work that I've done here, we've invited the public to come here and participate in the excavations, so that at least during the 2 weeks in June every year, we've run what could be called a field school here, giving people the opportunity to learn about the cultures of the prehistoric Southwest and actually participate in excavating, stabilizing, preserving, and protecting what is found here. Science tells us that although Homo sapien has been around for a long time, that probably 5, 10,000, 15,000 years ago may be the origin of our species, whereas the oral traditions of the present-day descendant peoples of the ancestors who built these sites go back much farther. We're really talking about events that occurred between approximately 300 and 1300 in terms of the actual construction of these sites. Prior to that, the oral traditions of the so-called Pueblo people, the Spanish term here in the Southwest, go back to what they call 3 previous worlds. Following that period, according to the oral traditions of these people, the Creator, the one we call God, sent one of his prophets here to the Southwest to tell the people that they were to be punished for having lost the world 3 times as a result of the corruption of mankind and the refusal of humanity to love God and to love our neighbor. And as a result, all of the ruined sites are part of a great chastisement, a great punishment that occurred over that 1,000-year period, where the people were told they would have to leave their ancient home sites here, primarily around the Grand Canyon, and go in all 4 directions to the 4 oceans, and then come back, having told all the world how the 3 previous worlds were lost and how to save the 4th world, and then they would be given the chance to have a 4th and final opportunity to do things right and to become what one of the cultures in the Southwest now calls the Hopi Tu Shinumu, abbreviated to Hopi, people all living in the right way. The three pits that you see here represent the three worlds that have been lost to mankind. The first world goes back to the origin of the human species in Adam and Eve, and represents the world that existed at the creation of man and that went on for many thousands of years, finally resulting in a state of corruption unfit in the eyes of the Creator, who had asked mankind only to love God and to love our neighbor and to share so that everybody might have enough. This is the world of Pangea, the one landmass, and the world is destroyed by fire when the Earth's atmosphere reaches thousands of degrees Fahrenheit. Great volcanoes and shifts in the Earth occur, and the one landmass breaks up into the 7 continents that we have today. The second world is the world that ends in ice during the Ice Age, after the world becomes corrupted for a second time. And the third world here is the world of Noah and the Ark, about 4,000 to 5,000 BC, when the earth is taken away from humanity for the third time. A few people listen and are loyal, but the majority of humanity doesn't want to accept what it's being asked to do. As a result of that, and it seems a shame to have to say it, but humanity murders God. According to the oral traditions of these people, the Creator sends another prophet, apprises the people here in the Southwest that they're to suffer a great chastisement. They're to go to the ends of the earth in all 4 directions, to the Pacific, the Arctic, the Atlantic, the tip of South America, and then all come back home again, having told the whole world why they lost these 3 worlds and how, if given the opportunity, they'll protect and preserve a 4th world if it's given to them. And here on the live side of the altar, we have the world that we live in today. Ironically called the loving world, in which everybody is doing things right. Loving God, loving their neighbor, and taking care of the 3 elements that are the foundation for all life. The air, the water, and the green growing plants of the earth. Of course, the new world that we live in today cannot be a repeat of what has happened in the ancient past. And this is one of the reasons why the descendant peoples today, from sunrise to sunset, 365 days a year, do what we try to do for perhaps 1 hour, 1 day a week, and that is offer thanksgiving and glory and praise and our petitions to the Creator in order to sustain this, the 4th world. This is our last time around, and we've got to get it right. final leg of the story occurs during the last half of that 1,000-year period, when people are returning from the oceans and heading back toward the Grand Canyon, where they are to meet the prophet who spoke to their great-great-grandparents 1,000 years earlier. Unfortunately, the requirement to tell all the people in the world about how they lost 3 previous worlds was a requirement which was far too difficult. And so as a result, they didn't go directly back to the prophet in the Grand Canyon and the place of emergence there, but they hid out for several hundred years in the Four Corners area, occupying first the 21-mile-long canyon in northwestern New Mexico called Chaco Canyon, followed by the occupation of Mesa Verde, then later Hovenweep in Utah, Colorado, and finally in Canyon de Chelly. It was a very tumultuous time in terms of their religion. Here they were not following the command of the prophet, failing to return, failing to convey the story of the lost worlds, until finally chaos broke loose. The priests that told them they were to return, they didn't like that story, and so they were killed, and chaos reigned for a long time. Finally, however, it was a matter of either go back and see the prophet and build the structures of this type to explain the lost worlds, or consent to the closing of the book of life and the end of humanity and no fourth world. And so somewhere between 12 and 1300, their religious society was formed. The idea of assigning a group of prayers and ceremonies to the individual clans during different cycles of the moon, and the Katsina society was formed. You've probably noticed the shape of this structure is a very narrow entrance and a very large chamber. This is the T shape, which is predominant in the religious life of these people and built into not only the structures of their religious ceremonies, but even into their small rooms where they live. The shape here is to represent the womb, the birth canal, and the birth chamber. It is required that we be in a state as close to perfection as humanity can obtain, not only on the outside but on the inside. As a result, the feathers and the branches and the beads and things that we have that the people here use for their ceremonies must all be correct, in the proper place, the proper color. That helps things be perfect on the outside. Being perfect on the inside is quite a different matter, however. And there, one must really look at your society as not me and mine, but us and ours, that we all share and contribute to one another for the happiness of all. And so one has to give up the individual ego and really get rid of everything negative on the inside. I suppose it boils down to that word forgiveness, where you not only forgive but forget all of that has been done to you that hurts you, so that you can be in a state of spiritual perfection on the inside. Then when you come in here, you're prepared to petition the Creator for rain during whatever ceremonies your clan might be offering. And when you offer the perfection of the life force, filled with forgiveness, in a state of as close to perfection as you can, then you can draw down perfection from the clouds, the creation of rain, by offering up your life force. And that's why you see them in the kind of ceremonies they perform, essentially doing double time in place. Just standing here like this, hour after hour, from sunrise until sunset, taking a brief break every hour or so, while the man in charge, the patriarch usually of that particular clan, who holds the sacred pouch of white corn powder, the substance of the Creator, they believe, goes around and puts that on the shoulder of the individual people who are saying the prayers, and gives them strength to continue for the remainder of a very, very long 12-hour day. You're going to find a great difference in what is taught in the universities in terms of the cultural identity of the prehistoric peoples, and that's to be understood with a sense of patience and understanding. After all, if you're looking at a map or a diary or a journal from Spain written several hundred years ago, and you're not familiar with the language of the people we call Navajo, or you don't speak Spanish, you're going to think that Mogollon and Sinagua and Salado and Tonto might well be the names of the people that the Spanish met when they arrived, which is not the case at all. There never were any Anasazi or any Mogollon or Hohokam or Sinagua or Salado or Tonto. The names that we know these people by today, which are not authentically their names, but which we know them by, are the Hopi, on the Hopi Reservation, the Tewa, the Tiwa, and the Tawa, along the Rio Grande, the Zuni that lived closer to here. And using those names to identify the cultures that the Spanish met when they arrived would be authentic. The fact that even those names are not the real names, I think, can be set aside. Once you meet the descendant people and live with them for a while, they'll tell you their real names. We're here in the Archaeological Museum at the X-Diamond Ranch, and all of the material that you see here in the room has been discovered and collected by members of the public, essentially, over the last 5 or 6 years. Wink Krigler, the owner of the ranch, has gone to extensive expense and trouble and time and energy to construct a really beautiful museum, display cases, platforms on which bowls, articles are displayed. And here you have what would have to be considered a unique collection, in that the public has found literally everything in this room. All of the artifacts here come directly from the rooms where the potsherds and the pieces were left over 1,200 years ago by the people who occupied this habitation site. Unlike sites open to the public by universities and private organizations, where once something is found, you're asked to go empty the garbage while the principal investigator takes it out, gets his name on it, his picture. And here, as you can see from the signs, the person who discovered it, the year that they discovered it, is placed next to the item. This is a unique item here at this site, the only canteen that's ever been found here. The fact that the designs are really the autobiography of the lady who made the bowl or the vessel, telling you who made her, what was important in her life in terms of the natural elements of sky and rain and lightning and water and so forth. Tools, essentially hammers and hoes, scrapers, things they used to till the land as well as to form the rows in which they would plant their seeds. There are several different religious figurines of animals, most of which found here are bears and give the name Little Bear Archaeological Site to this location. The bones were left in the rooms as a return of the life force to the Creator in gratitude for survival. I suppose one of the oldest legends, myths, oral traditions in the world, which is celebrated almost, if not entirely universally, in any culture you might go to, China, India, in the old world, and throughout here in the Western Hemisphere, is the story of the lost, white-skinned, bearded brother who will one day return. Known among the people of the Nahuatl language that we call Aztec as Quetzalcoatl, Quetzal bird, coatl snake, the feathered serpent that you see in some of the drawings in the hieroglyphs from Mesoamerica and in other places. And so, even here in the Southwest, the story of the lost three worlds, the fourth world that we live in today, are all in a way related to that ancient myth. The Hopi call him Pahana, and they expect him to return one day and to present to them a religious object that was taken when he was here and which will be returned by the authentic person who is described in that oral tradition and in that legend. And it is a revelation not only from them, but now during the past 5 to 10 years in the field of science that is termed quantum physics, to learn that scientific discoveries really do support and corroborate the oral traditions of the prehistoric peoples in terms of those two ideas of what we're all connected to, what connects us all, and what has always been, is, and always will be. When you examine the earth, in addition to examining simultaneously the flesh of the human body, you find out that the contents are the same. We're all made out of the same thing, and the only real difference is the shape and the density. Otherwise, everything is really the same thing. As the ancient people would say, all things are connected. All are one, and each is all. And finding out those aspects of the universal and the eternal in not only Native American life, but scientifically in all the rest of the world and my own culture has really been quite satisfactory in establishing for me the meaning of life and how we're all connected here for the same purpose, and why we were created and what life's all about and where we're going to be ending up.